Voilà, so, ça, j'ai dans toi, j'ai son nom. Dans du Voilà, so that just some tamjega to the Tojalana Machiba Sanjay Kumar Bocha Chinaja Tobacha. And the each of the judges and Labjan of Switch of the long like single, similar to the show Mano at Kotu, and the Kasu Baba the Takacha Geshe Mushiwala, it's about Junju and the Geshe to me, sometimes.
And so, as we normally do, we begin by setting a sincere motivation to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment. And we know that to attain such a state, we must establish all the causes, and they are embodied by perfecting all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. To perfect those trainings, we have to have a thorough knowledge of them, and we can only gain this by being able to rely on a reliable source, a reliable text. And so it is with this in mind that we are here today to listen to an explanation on some verses of the Bodhisattva's way of life by the great master Shantideva.
What is it? And Takaja, Garsinam Junation Chen, Rangi, and it Dungi, Nangala Casoro, Tangor and Getinia Lama number and Lama Tuba was set up and Shaji Chani and Kulam Kuchu Medos, yes, and in Namjak and a 2 second Rosen number. But what's about here, some of Kombasha?
And as normal, also, we set up our visualization for this particular teaching. And that is that we are surrounded by all kind of other sentient beings, and that in the space in front of us is the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha, who is actually in essence our own root guru. The figure of Shakyamuni Buddha is dressed in the saffron robes of a monk. He has one face and two hands. His right hand is in the earth-touching mudra, and the left hand is in the meditative equipoise mudra, holding an alms bowl filled with nectar. And we really feel that he is actually present.
And the Ranga Tawato, and the Ranga Tinchiba Majinga Simja, Rota City Pamane, Cheban, Majinga Simja, Tamja Mason never use some such a George Simja Tamja.
And that we visualize in the space around us all a kind mother sentient beings, starting with our parents, those who are, excuse me, those who are close to us, and spreading out to include all the beings of the 6 realms of existence.
What do you say? And Lama Tubia Umbuti, and Casole, Lama Tubia Umbe, and Chivo on Chamba, Tuga was eager soon just said that Tuga Hole, and we said part of my training, Shingdam Jan Yeshiva, and the Caso Ola the Chaba Chant and Yeshiva, Lama Tubia Nova Channel, only on Chulama children never, and we give a good take what is
And the figure of the Guru Buddha in front of us is marked by the 3 syllables, Om at the crown, A at the throat, and Hung at the heart center. From that Hung at the heart center, light rays emanate, go out into the pure realms, inviting the wisdom beings and the empowering deities from their abodes. They come, the wisdom beings dissolve into this male figure, and the empowering deities confer the nectar of empowerment, some of which overflows at the crown, from which spontaneously appears the figure of Akshobhya.
Then Lama Tubia Umbuti Shiba Mosushuna, and Tusum the Sanja Tam Jigata, Dani, some what are the negative because of the Anikibuchimbuti, and it's just so
And so we have the certainty at this point, following the dissolution and the empowerment, that the figure of Guru Buddha that we are visualizing in front is indeed the true embodiment of all enlightened beings. And so this is something that we become very, very consciously aware of in terms of our now being protected by such holy beings as this. And so this brings a tremendous sense of trust and confidence and joy to the mind.
Okay. What's in the sea lesson?
Yeah.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, okay. Yeah, what did I say? What did the Kanjata? Was a Kasura. Yeah, a million or two.
Yeah, that's a Jesus song. Day and you're
Jesus so what I call concept, what is compassion, and then that Kanjat. That Kanjat, and it's a rangi tuna never, and Lama to be on with and Kuson to the Yunde Jenny. Rota, Raji Batamja Java, Shanti Wata Java Tablet Java, Gula Tedich when you remember to Panda Mata, Jigga dance again. What I did you, some such an what did it seem but in water, what did it say? When the Ranga Tagoni Basimja, Teta Tamja, and don't get not to tell us some Mississippi. Nije Ken. Rata to a Chaba to Jig to an upset to some time until Mississippi Nije. What did it say? Catch what is it?
So in looking at the figure of Guru Maninda, the Buddha that we have visualized in front, we have this very clear awareness of the qualities of an enlightened being, such as having no fear of suffering with regard to themselves, being skilled in means in relieving the suffering of others, who work for others with both great compassion and without any hint of bias, and benefit others without any thought of getting any benefit in return. These are essential qualities of an enlightened being. And that these, and then when we look at all the sentient beings all around us, we are acutely aware of the state of suffering that they are in. And we find that unbearable. The idea that they are suffering, the suffering of pain in itself, the suffering of change, and particularly pervasive suffering. And so we find all of this thought on suffering unbearable.
What did the compassion that and Taganisha Lama to be on Botia, and it's a Narazu the Jawami of my better, Narazu to the Tuki, Narazu to the Lam, Narazu to the Mobats of Sanjaba into Narazu Taka Jawami of Zawan never that. Inaya, Lama to be on Boogie, any better Narazu Chicasol, Tachik, Sewata, Pemba to Jota, and it's to the Chilate, and the you ever go doing a you ever did. In a Narazumene and a Debe Almonji. Trumatu Yinsa and Jesumatu Hati. Then the Imbazata Daringanzu and the Temptation Castle Taka Lamba to be on Buki and you ended to the Tempest, Jeshimane and Japs to John, Garzu Debe along the sound and the chick and the Castle Daka Castle Lamba to be on Jesune and Chick Sanjay combat top to Yaki Taka Mibato to 2. What the lesson conversation? What I can say, Lamatubia will meet Deba. Tawetaba, Ichitaba, Mudugaba, Simjeng, the Dungena so the Musubi Ninja, and that to make you the Java Chimor, Java Shooter. Java Shooter, the Lamatubia watching it to sue. Java Target, the general Lamatubia watching it to sue. That to make you the Java Chimor, Java Shooter, and the Java. Target checking, that general Lamatubia watching it to sue. Taka just so the Java to the Jama to save it. Sometimes some just chicken at the bottom jet at the bottom of the Jama to win. That the Java and the Sula to some. And some jet or two jet, Lamla Mumbas one. Corner to that Congo combat maton, Tommy to Toba Chigi, sons of what in the combat. And it teaches that Juju that they should be in some of what in the combat.
And so when we view the figure of the Guru Manindra Buddha in the space in front as well, that we should not think that we have kind of no connection at all. That in fact there's a very intimate connection. They're born from the fact that the Buddha developed that mind of enlightenment, wishing to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. That of course includes us naturally. That then trained on that path for that very reason, for the benefit of our benefit. And manifested full and complete enlightenment, similarly for our benefit as well. And so all that has been done has been in that kind of realm of making that connection with us, and our in the hope that we will make a connection with the Buddha and his teachings as well. And so that's the heart of the issue, that in spite of that, however, we of all that love and all that benefit coming from the side of the Buddha constantly, that our faith has not been up to the task, that we need to be able to increase that kind of trust and conviction in the teachings in order to have a similar trust in our own practice. And so that's the important point, that we want to go to refuge for refuge in the qualities that we so admire in an enlightened being, and that to kind of have that real conviction that we wish to emulate those qualities in our own mind streams. Therefore, we proceed with that faith of pure faith, faith of aspiration, and the faith of conviction in those qualities. And that this is our attitude in viewing, our vision of the visualization that we have in front. And when we view the sentient beings all around us, we are acutely aware of the suffering that they are going through. So this is inspiring a sense of compassion, finding such suffering unbearable, and how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May that be the case. I will see to it that it is the case. O Guru Manindra Buddha, please bless me to make this so. And similarly, how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and the causes of happiness. And may that be the case. I will see to it that it is the case. O Guru Manindra Buddha, please bless me to be able to make this so. And so we have this very powerful aspiration to do good, to really help sentient beings, but we realize how limited we are. We can't even do this for one sentient being efficiently. But when we look around to see who has the capacity, we see that it is in the state of enlightenment itself, the Buddhas, because they have that knowledge of each individual's personality, dispositions, karmic propensities, and so on, and timing and everything else is right about the help and benefit that they give. And so therefore, the conclusion is, I need to, there is no choice for me to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. And this is the reason why I am here this morning, to listen to an explanation from the actual ways of the Bodhisattva's way of life, the blueprint for being able to do that. Shokran di gyatan nishu zachik ani gone sapye chikde somba nyegyu soki seji da chawani.
Oh yeah. Niguso gets any chita chawanes at Zawale, Nieta, put it out your bomb, Yogo Tundo, Nieto bomb. Dark Sam
So we are still on chapter 5 of the text entitled our awareness, and that's here in the context of how we, with awareness, protect all activities of body, speech, and mind. We have been looking at a listing of all the different events that can arise, or moments of mental awareness that can arise, and that in each situation, what is appropriate for us to do. And so here is the case of a third subheading in that list, where it says that at a time when we have a desire for wealth or respect, etc., what is it that we should do? And verse number 51 gives that in more detail. Whenever I desire material gain, honor or fame, whenever I seek attendance or a circle of friends, and when in my mind I wish to be served, at all these times I should remain like a piece of wood.
아니 녀몽 줄어 주고 요반인사 아니 디고에치도 순고 여름에도야 지금 상생 거 말이 아니 대라서 같은데 거 말이 년다 거요 말서 년다 그거 여 년다 여바이나 편바 주에 납치야 여래 얘네 년다를 착바이나 아니 녀몽 줄어 주고 요반인사 디견치고 여봐 디견치고 여라 어디 되게 예와 치면 거네 아니 가서다 딜라 마착 받잖아 다 착바 끼기도나 아니 착배 상황도 마다오자 신신의 내고래 숨고도 와 어디를
Of course, in general, when we read this verse, we should actually, it needs to be in sense of some qualifications here, because of course, whenever I desire material gain, should we say, some material gain is necessary. And whenever I desire honor, some honor is necessary, is beneficial in many cases, even fame in terms of being able to reach more people in a beneficial way. It can be an advantage to one's practice. And so what's being discussed here is not the actual element of goods or material gain or fame or honor itself, but rather the attachment that can easily come along with those things. And so because when we have attachment to materials, that is a mental affliction, and that's going to cause suffering. And similarly, if we have an attachment to our honor or attachment to our fame, that's going to create difficulties as well, because it is a mental affliction. And we want to be able to avoid mental affliction at all costs. And this is then the job of the awareness that we bring to all of this, to ensure that we can, gain some materials and good reputation, etc., in the correct proportions, and for a beneficial purpose rather than to feed any mental affliction like attachment.
로다 지금 상생다 니고다 년다다 되돌아 차바디 되잖아 차바딜라 때네 아니 말아도 코알을 맡아서 근데 코알을 내주는데 어때 차바디게 제모도 차바디게 제가 아니 차바디 때라 차바 코란데 갑자기 많이 오고서 도대 이네 차바딜라 때네 아니 콘도다 셰단다 다디게 레고도 차바딜라 때네 디마존나 콘도 제게도 컨트롤기도 안 당한데 시게 착바딜라 때네 아니 저 뭐유게 내서 통화를 봐도 제게도 와 착바디 코란게 다가 저 뭐유게 내서 통화를 견지게 요래 아니 당한데 딜라 때는 디마도나 컨트롤기게 요래 세단기게 요래 다가 저 제제도 그 놈어디가 야 랑고도 와
So the fault with attachment is that, of course, we who desire to be liberated from cyclic existence, if we have attachment, there is no hope of that. In fact, it's mainly attachment what keeps us in cyclic existence, you know. And so you can see it's something very undesirable for anybody wishing to attain liberation. And that likewise too, an often unreported problem with attachment is that attachment itself is that which initiates anger in many situations. For example, if we fail to get the object of our attachment, we can get very frustrated and angry because of that. Even hatred can result from attachment itself. And so, and as well as that, because it's so important for us to be able to see reality clearly, the actual nature of things, in order to make good decisions. This is compromised by attachment, because attachment tends to exaggerate the object of its attachment, and so its object, and so therefore that clouds the issue for us, and therefore we can't make good decisions based on that. So it's a very detrimental state of mind.
Tenda tiwa la sobata tenda and tiwa la sobata tagani sing nyandala sobata tyoba rota kanjacha tede tyoba and tagani sing yogo to the newa wata to the newa re tagani church be tunga chedo because yogo la soba yona kota tigro ina dila chaba ina skorota so kasata takacha to the nya tyoba tagesa semla rimjoso tobajuna tar rimjoso tobajuna teze yi kanla yasa miyo wa singsu de neba chawo sa ta ji xiangwa de ma da chen anu wo ta de wo de so wo de shi.
So it's saying here that when we have that desire, that attachment to stuff, basically, respect, or honor, fame, the desire to have servants or a circle of admirers, when we wish to be served, or any of these states of mind, you know, that the attachment within is something that's very, very detrimental, as been pointed out. And what we should do in a situation like that is to really be careful that our mind does not move away from its virtuous object and remain like a piece of wood.
Takanda ani shendung ruwa da shendung la sembe ta shendung tonda la sambu tandu ani kalistangu da sura chita chawane zawale shendung yawa dowa ta shendung yawa dowa ta randu nyawa dowa ta mao dowa semjuna teze singchen neba chas.
The fourth of those subheadings is what we should do at a time when we are thinking about the benefit of others. And verse number 52 points out, whenever I have the wish to decrease or to stop working for others, and the desire to pursue my welfare alone, if motivated by such thoughts, I wish to say something occurs, at these times I should remain like a piece of wood.
Rota pamata simje shingetun and yawato around and corner don't need that so to them the summer time to Mavachan. Shall a pamba juva in a sosugi don't that to reach the pamba to teach. Pamba to teach. What the Chavanda do my water? Corner don't never us, Dovataji, that tagi is a Nama to the same Jonathan, the same Kundalan and the don't have to reach the Taki Shaguna. Mao to be same Jona, there's a ye dear dollar mio sing to the never ye there's a miora. That there's a so good dollars because ranches good dollars, some local shed you what and the Tilla Madame and sing to the never chawas. What are these young old Madame neck would just the shame was so then she would just what is what is it?
And so in this verse, then we are looking at the benefit of really ignoring the benefit that should be acted on for all other mother sentient beings, father mother sentient beings. So it's like we kind of ignore them, we pay no attention to that, and then just work for our own benefit. And that this is something that is kind of not desirable. And it may be the case also that we are helping others, but only with our own benefit in mind. And so here we need to have that pause to see how deeply enmeshed in self-cherishing these attitudes are, how we might be in danger of falling under the control of our self-cherishing, and to pull back, remain unmoved and like a piece of wood.
그냥 알아서 내 당보하라 지나 지금 선바 상보를 기는 파로 과제와 있네 거기 제일 패배 상보도 숙청보지 매다도 아니 저 남신은 소소히 되바다 맞도 받지 중앙도 아니 로과제 로도 연구보다 교체 좀도但是가서 샘 딩딩들라 샘 딩딩들라 아니 저거 랑 전생 온게 제대로 여봐 있자 되게 다된 것도 봐 디다 다디면 봤잖아 가서데 랑라 지금 랜다 남인가 저와 매봤잖아 바로 받아 편바 두바이나 아니 저 가서다 저 소소 디 가사디가 소소 내바께와 이네 소소게 삼로데 오 당게 니마 로과 잡도 딩마 손 삼상 어디 기가 말와 오 당게만 해 국가 약보 정소 제도 그런 건가라 컨트롤사고 요마 등알 국가 약보 쉬고 당 국가들 라서 와서 또 통보를 용한테기로 와 용한테기로 와
Likewise here too, that if we have the desire to start talking about these kind of things, say something about, you know, only wishing for my own benefit and so on, there we should really pause and remain like a piece of wood. And so it's saying here too, as you know, in terms of being a beginner on the spiritual path, it's very easy to fall into a situation where even though it appears that we are helping another, we're really only concerned about fulfilling some desire of our own, and whether it's going to be fulfilled or not through helping the other person. So it's kind of a compromised act of virtue. And so deep down we can see it's really still our self-cherishing calling the shots. And so we have to really, you know, put everything into more of a cool, undisputed karmic kind of context, and say, you know, what is happening here is the ripening effect of something that has happened in the past. It's clear that you know, I need more practice at being able to benefit in a pure way that haven't done so well in the past. I see now this is an opportunity for me to rectify that and to really be careful in terms of motivation, action and dedication, etc., and therefore really upskill our acts of virtue.
어디는 딱 이제 개치슈대 가서래요. 그래 딱 이제 저 가서대 딱 이제 셀라 편바 주도다. 가서대 편바 주도다. 아니 선제시 제벌소에 로콤이에데 로콤 당부 로콤 장바제 랑진진게 아니 가서대 그 고도만의 삼을다. 현진제가 연도 고도만의 아니 현재적인 연도 고도만의 삼로 따네 아니 어디내게 아니 저 가서도 곰 아니 전제가 로켓답 제네 어디는 곰 아니 되네 딱 거지 지금 디다 다디 아니 되네게 아니 현재적인 삼로 뒤에 도네 아니 시안을 강투도게 한다 편바주비에다 뭐다디게 야 곰시 땡고도 곰시 땡네 아니 다디 디 제베 갈라 아니 랑라 랜다 나민가 사메티게지 소소 다데 편바데 제네 아니 랜다 나민가 라와메티게지 다 간제 지다 파 편바 주에다 진바 당해야 된다게 아니 가서데 다 가져 저 남백이 아니 가서다 지금 태바 체주 니가네 용되고 요르데 얘네야 태바 침벽이 개주데 랜다 나민가 라와메티게지 고고 요래 데데 자주 sembe게 아니 가서다 태바 침벽이 다 냠내래 랜다 나민가 라와메티게지 what is
And so here, how do we ensure then that the acts of benefit, kindness, and so on towards others are pure, are good quality virtues. And here, it's the most important thing is to really habituate the mind with the kind of the benefit of and towards others. How we engage in both dismissing our own concerns because of the false and thereby reduce the faults of self-cherishing, and then think more on the mind which cherishes others, and why we cherish others, why that is valid and appropriate. And so we kind of fill the mind, we habituate the mind towards how wonderful our sentient beings, how beneficial sentient beings are, how deserving sentient beings are. And so in this way, we kind of empower that side of the mind so that it is kind of a natural reaction towards meeting any sentient being. The idea of wanting to help them, the thought of wanting to benefit them is there. It doesn't have to be generated. And therefore, the only issue is how is that going to appear, in reality. And we try to do the best we can in the actual action that arises from that. And so normally speaking, we don't have much confidence in the karma, in kind of the ripening effect that we have. We kind of think of, oh yeah, if I do this, what's in it for me in terms of a ripening effect? But when we are helping others, that should not be any part of the consideration, and of course, there are practices that are outlined in all the different vehicles of Buddhism, but it is in the Mahayana vehicle in particular that we dismiss any expectation of karmic or ripening result as a result of beneficial actions. We do not allow that to be part of our motivation, part of the act, and even dedication. In terms of the virtues that we engage in. And so we must be aware of that as Mahayana practitioners, that we don't have expectations for ourselves in our practice. And so, for example, even in the ultimate motivation of a mind of enlightenment, yes, it is to attain the state of enlightenment, but why? For the benefit of others. It is purely, solely, exclusively for the benefit of others. And so we talk about, the ultimate result is therefore not Buddhahood. It's the fact that Buddhahood allows us to kind of embody the ultimate result of benefiting others.
문에잖아 산제 코라라 추구네 수굴을 당고에 요 말이야. 수굴을 당고에 샘쟁을 되는 주변에도 아니 수굴을 당고 요 봐. 다 수굴을 당도 롱굴을 당와 임바 이나니 장세 파바면도 편도 제두면 도와. 다 된다 아니 추굴 롱굴에 아니 롱굴에 당 추굴에 당지도 와. 그래서 아니 두자리자 순간을 편도해 지도. 연구도 어디까지 거봐 좋아데 샘쟁을 되는 주변에도 임바 인자 아니 수굴 나바된 거지. 수굴모도 제 연구도 와. what did that in the imba Randin Chugu send the Sugu Sigdo, Randu Chugu want to jet and sing it on that, and the Sugu to check what did this? Penakushi to Dana Samatama in there.
And so, for example, in that when we talk about the attainment of the Buddha bodies and so on, and the system of the four bodies of a Buddha, we have the wisdom body. And it's the wisdom body isn't a physical entity, and so can't directly be out there benefiting sentient beings. and that we need that physical body of the Buddha to be there present in order to directly benefit sentient beings and to work for others, even though the motivation is undiminished in any of the bodies of the Buddha, of course. And so therefore, we have the enjoyment body as one of the physical bodies of the Buddha, and that, of course, but the enjoyment body is only available to those on high level bodhisattvas, etc., Arya beings, and so on, to receive teachings. And so the Buddha emanates another physical body, the emanation body, and there has all the beings of the 6 realms of existence have access to that emanation body, and he can benefit at that level. And so this is the reasoning behind it, the 4 bodies of the Buddha, the wisdom bodies for our own benefit, the form bodies for the benefit of others. So the 5th subheading is to say what is to be done at the time when we desire to generate anger or discouragement. In verse number 53, it details some of these states of mind. Whenever I have impatience, laziness, cowardice, shamelessness, or the desire to talk nonsense, if thoughts of partiality arise, at these times too, I should remain like a piece of wood. And so here, the outlining, the issues that might arise in the execution of our spiritual responsibilities when we're engaging in Dharma practice, that through the hardships that might arise, we may develop frustration, impatience, anger. And so in that context, it's pointing to the fact that, here you need to start really concentrating on the benefits of patience and looking at the faults of impatience in order to rectify a fault like that. Likewise, if laziness is the big issue, so creating an obstacle to our engaging in spiritual practice, we have to detail the kind of laziness we're talking about. Is it the laziness of being attracted to negative activities, the laziness of putting things off again and again, procrastination, or the laziness of defeatism, where we go, it's all too much for me. I just can't imagine ever making any progress. And so here, you need to be able to kind of really detail that in order to see what antidote is necessary to counteract it. Likewise, fear of the arising of the ripening of negativities and so on to suffering that might cause you to freeze and not engage in anything, or you're indulging in shameless activities where you have no control over your sense reactions. And also you can be thick-headed, not listening to anybody. You can be rude to talk to, impolite. Also you can be biased with regard to, racist or partiality in your judgments of others and so on. And so if there is a danger of this, if you kind of spot this with your awareness, then you should cause the mind to pause and remain like a piece of wood.
다 간제 제 가소래 제 가소래 저기 녀몽게 잡조지에게 아니 저 녀몽게 튕겨 조겐게 다저 랑게 나기네다 루기 남주이네다 다간이 생게 제 가소래 삼로고 톤에 이번 되게 용에 갑라 오다 간제 제 가소래 지금 랑게 삼륜내세 오수 여바지나 아니 좀 전 삼로다네 아니 대숙 청다다는 매버서답자 다디 숙 첨보지 레게도나 아니 딜고가 마다 신나신 내체치 더 삼로가 내체 도스도나 아니 삼로가 토네 다디 견다 아니 연대 대체네 어디든지 다가자 남리 체네 아니 디샹와도 마다하체네 갑자기 차이지 단 대숙 첨보 쉬워질래네 레도 아니 가서라다 신나신 대네 다가자 디샹와도 마다하체네 the on the model interstate that the shushambo level kadola samlo ke tae any chigi shra niwa mata we kaptela ani singchi negech samlo go kap to ta samlo go tone ta kanje the gyen de chen ma ja dap ji gu yoro ta samlo ge nese shra mata we kap chile gro ta the shushambo ya le do samlo nese dangum do an ti do gaya chwa me so de che su gu yoro.
So here what's happening in terms of the arising of the mental affliction like these, that we can give support to mental afflictions like this towards what we say, towards what we do with our body, towards what we think with our mind. And so they can kind of like bloom into something then very powerful. And so what we need to do is to understand that these thoughts, these attitudes are arising at their early stage, and then to insert into that line of thinking our own reasoning, to be able to say this isn't the way to think, this isn't the way to speak, this isn't the way to do, and that reduces the power of that particular mental affliction. It's less likelihood that you will fall under the control of that mental affliction. But in these verses, what it is talking about is when the mental affliction is already a very powerful, and maybe your capacity for reasoning is compromised. So at that point, the best way to proceed is to remain like a piece of wood. So really steady, stop, don't do anything, remain like a piece of wood. And then when things ease up again, then you can start introducing analytical thinking as to the faults of the particular situation and the benefits of a better way of dealing with it. And so the key point is here, at no point should you be in a situation where you fall under the control of the particular mental affliction. And so it's here, it's kind of important that when it's a mild stage that you get used to with your awareness and mindfulness, so in putting in the antidotes into place and to be able to think about at that time, think about the faults of leading on, carrying on that way of thinking and so on, and to put a stop to it. But when it has reached a certain kind of intensity, then stop the reasoning, make sure you remain like a piece of wood until things calm again and you have some space in the mind to do the analysis.
我真的是大感觉如果别人产生了我说你就了控制3年大的了这个度假下午上的这个大底下呢这个这technology 就是因为是咱们讲考吧当也当咱们讲 email 当也当咱们讲 message 当也经过我大点这个上路咱们讲他信息人家不是的 message 马上真的我真的真大感觉这真的感觉是那个控制的马西州了控制马西州了我大概马上也会修正说삼사 용으로 왔다. 뭐 컨트사도 때 된거 뭐도 독자 람지 주나 아니 거 당에 약고시 람지 중 삼사 제면도 초하게미도 와. 레모스 삼사 정보도 다 컨트도 마시다 디다 레모스 또 노지 친소 또 doctor소 삼사 용고도 와. 되는 용고로 왔다. 딱 간제 나 되는 임에서 되다 가야 맞아 신시도 내나 간제 뭐 되는 전 되게 가서 가봐다 computer 了老婆马上现信息的那些我大点的用不了大点现大就讲他皮的多我点的现
And so, for example, a modern example of this is in terms of if we get very angry and react in some way, that we may tend to send a nasty message on the phone or a nasty email or something that kind of can happen very quickly, and that that can have then, of course, more negative consequences, not least of which when we calm down again and realize that, I've made a bad mistake here. I shouldn't have sent that nasty message or and so on. And so it's very important, isn't it, that, that you recognize the difference in your capacity when anger is hot, when you're angry, and that it's difficult to make proper decisions, and that you may not realize that at the time when you're angry, of course. So this is when it's advising you, just remain like a piece of wood. Don't do anything. Just remain like a piece of wood. Stay away from the phone and don't do anything. And so, because at the end, if you have reacted in anger, it's nearly always the case that later when you calm down, you kind of have this moment of bright embarrassment, isn't it? That, oh God, what did I do? I shouldn't have sent that nasty mail or whatever. And so it's kind of like recognizing that at that time you should have remained like a piece of wood.
我这里讲，大感觉我这里讲，当然你现在这个没来接着这个说了，当控制上的这个独家说，我当心里是那就用不了，他我这里讲，这个多。
This is just as relevant when you're, in a conversation with somebody, right next to them, with, live, that you have to kind of be aware of the words that kind of so easily come out of your mouth, and that can turn very nasty very quickly. And so we have to remain like a piece of wood in a situation like that.
当然你是本来摸着当中的摸着角落呢，比结束呢，我心里那不讲这个话。
And so especially in terms of road rage, when we're driving and somebody's beeping us behind, and there it's a good time to remain like a piece of wood.
行，那个俺里看着独家嘛了呢，足够独家找的东个多，是吧？看着独家嘛了呢，俺足够给。
Oh yes. Yeah. So even if you don't say anything nasty, you can you can make very nasty, rude gestures with the fingers of the hand. Remain like a piece of wood.
Yeah, what did it yeah, what did it channel? I got no more my dear Pinky, no more my dear Pinky, what I do not no more good what the catcher pensum care, and no more good than need to come to the chat on the Yabushate. I lit never be my junior, singing never enough till a pajo de la and no more get much of it. Round no more get and a pajo de no more get you. No more get you. And the pajo de lenum around your more get and she wanted to, and the pajo de lenum more she wanted that you got no more good to that. Then you got kept some kind of marata. Don't pass it out the door. What that did to soon you're a 7
So that's why it's so important to kind of really to really foster thoughts of love, kindness, compassion, benefit in the mind, and to be able to kind of fall back on that habituated mindset, those mindsets, when we are in mental affliction trouble, as it were. Because, if it's always the case, if I fall under the control of mental affliction, particularly anger, it's very often going to give rise to that same kind of mental affliction in another. And once that is the case, you can't really hope for a beneficial outcome. It's only going to be a faulty problem after that faulty result.
다 숨바 돈도도바이나 돈도도바이나 자와래 대다 군년 녀몬다 되메 쯤에 이다네 대체 바위 년보이 된디 템보 송와자스.
And so verse number 54 is the summary of the previous verses. And so it says, having in this way examined his mind for disturbing conceptions and for thoughts that strive for meaningless things, the courageous Bodhisattva should hold his or her mind steady through the application of remedial forces.
다 대다 군년 녀몬베 이당 녀몬베 이다 삼리케와다 아니 되면버 다 지금 룽하고 저바지 되게데 이라 따내서 다 되게 신네 아니 대체 아니 바보 톱다 되만 신 바보 톱다 되만 다 자외서 녀보이 다 되게 녀바 마수바체네 디 샹마도 마다 녀모그 교마 주바체네 녀보이 이 때네 녀모베 온도 마다 와자고르스 마다 때부 송도바체 고르스 송도바차 오셔 다 최줍줍선 디바 다 최줍줍세
And so the summary here goes that if all of these mental afflictions in the mind and the pointless or meaningless actions of body and speech that follow on for them are examined, are checked and looked into, then the Bodhisattva, the heroic Bodhisattva, will be able to apply the antidotes, and through applying the antidotes will never fall under the control of these mental afflictions, but remain very steady in their mindset. And so again, as pointing out, this is nothing more than what is referred to as Dharma practice. This is actual Dharma practice.
최줍줍스들 다 최줍줍서 녀모를 갑대 차야 녀모를 갑대 차바이나 다 최줍어래 녀모를 갑대 차마도 바이나 다 가르쳐네 아니 녀모에 통계를 주고도 최 말이 다 가리 미그 최실들에 나와나 다 전당군에 최 많이 맞차대도 다 최승인데 녀모게 라 갑대로 녀모 갑대로도 좀도
So that has to be very, very clear that the spiritual practice is the opposition to the occurrence of mental affliction. It's always that. It's always making sure that there is no mental affliction at play. And it can look like spiritual practice, and somebody can, be referred to as having great qualities, I think, but if they're not engaged in the process of counteracting mental affliction, then they're in trouble. And the same goes for anybody who looks like they're engaged in great spiritual practice, but is not opposing mental affliction, and that the Dharma practice they think they're doing is non-Dharma.
아니 때네 다 가서 지금 녀모의 생활도 맞잖아 뒤지 빼빼고 차주고도 차주어서 다 녀모의 생활 땅소나 소소 비세 쇠샤로 다 강발 갑디 차대고라다 녀모의 갑디 차네 랑게 룽아 예수의 야고지 성적 제바이나 성적 제토나 아니 랑 문에 전에게다 뒤지 빼빼고 영하죠 문에 전에 기부 뒤지 빼고 영하죠 다 뒤배나 다 동해 장장 다 거기에 가서래 다 저기 견주장자 제거시 다 가서 르가 이순가가 배절랑하네 아니 다 뒤지게 거시 차 아니 오늘 전에 소소가 다 강에 당도 련사는 봐 강에 다저 가서 다 월린텔레 시우래다 당랑 되네 강에 련사서 차대도 다 삼로 약고 당나 오다 들레잖아 다 너무 되게 영상 거되게 간이 되다 봐이나 어랑을 뒤지 빼먹고 되게 간 갑자기 자고 말와 아니 뒤지 망보 아니 샘 고양고 기부 그래도 당가 저 기부 용 마용데 녀몽 거데 까투마도 들어도 타바다 탐제 겸바다 파쇼다 아니 내가를 차서는 녀몽기 상황도 채는 거뒤니 기부문도 니니 기부 구문도 아니 칼라서 야보서에 좋아민도 가리나 다 녀몽기 상황도 맞잖아 니 기부 구원 그래 아니 칼라 좋아차 요래 가리니 기부 요라 미다 참차 조금 망아 요래 뒤에 샘 딩거 조금 요래 아니 다디 내가 그래 아니 다도는 산제 타바다 탐제 겸 아니 주디가 뱀에도 좀 그러다
So we have to see the difference between a life that is in opposition to mental affliction, thereby a life whereby one protects the acts of body, speech, and mind, and one life which is not doing that, therefore more dominated by mental affliction. And you can see in the first case that actually you're living a life with a lot more time on your hands to begin with, and that you have like the freedom that you have gained through control over your body, speech, and mind. Whereas in the second case, that you are giving time and comfort to your own mental afflictions, and it's going to result in a kind of a busy life where you're at war with everybody else around you, all of the people you are in contact with, and that here, everybody is an opponent in some way. You're criticized and you're being critical of others in a detrimental way. And so it's in a situation like that it almost looks to be like for a person who is allowing their mental afflictions to run their lives as if they are like one of these great volunteers. But instead of volunteering to help, they're volunteering for suffering. And so that's what it looks like, that they're running towards suffering like helter-skelter. So it's very important that we start the process of really kind of seeing the faults of mental affliction and seeing that without the domination of mental affliction, without the presence of mental affliction, there's so much more room for happiness. And that we can see also that, our happiness depends to a great extent on whether we have closed or not closed the door to mental affliction. And so here, it's important to understand as well that a mind that is free of mental affliction, you're going to sleep more soundly, you're going to enjoy your food better, your relations with others are going to increase, you're going to have more friends, they're going to be deeper friendships. Whereas if you have a mind that readily falls under the control of mental affliction, it's going to affect your sleep patterns. It's going to not allow you to enjoy your food as you should. And not to mention that your relations with others will be fractious, to say the least. And so it's very, very important as well to kind of really see that the idea of habituating towards kindness, love and compassion is makes a lot more sense in every way. And that not only that, but it is creating the causes for liberation from cyclic existence, the attainment of the omniscient state of enlightenment. And when we are well habituated, these causes are accumulated effortlessly, spontaneously by us.
ngaranzo chige tanda de chige chuge nyamle chige cheba ine tata mondro gen ta anje kange chete da mangu chi karchaso ngaranzo nyomo nyamle chete da nyomo nyamle chete to chuge nyamle tata rugma da kuni gendarwa kuni genda inza ko tata jotu umdo 어디를 다가자 다 뭐저 최근 냠내 제서 너무를 갑자기 자야 돼 너무를 갑자기 자서 그 다가는 거 최근 냠내 자야 없다 최근 냠내 자야 되고 어다디 뭐저 그 가서도 만화 왔잖아 만화 왔잖아 때는 언제 가서래 어디 제 개천버려도 어디
So when we engage in our own kind of spiritual practice and we are, encountering a great deal of obstacles and problems and things are not perfect in any sense, what we have to really examine is to what extent our practice is not the practice of Dharma, but the practice of mental affliction. And that it can very easily confuse the two. And that means that we won't ever feel the sense of progress in our spiritual practice. So it's very important to kind of really say, okay, if I reduce all my practice to opposing the mental affliction, then we'll see what the results will be. And that so it's kind of really pointing to the fact that we should make the unmistaken choice with regard to this, that a spiritual practice centered on the opposition to mental affliction is going to be a successful practice. So the next same major heading is that the protecting the training of the mind from degenerating. And this has the three subheadings. One is protecting against protection through individual antidotes, and then through general or common antidotes, and the how to actually apply the antidotes. And so the first of these subheadings is the protection through individual antidotes. And verses 55 and 66 give us more detail. Being very resolute and faithful, steady, respectful, polite, with a sense of shame, apprehensive and peaceful, I should strive to make others happy. I should not be disheartened by all the whims of the childish who are in discord with one another. I should know them to arise in their minds due to disturbing conceptions and therefore be kind towards them.
Geshe Tani Chimbuke, Takacha, Namlenche, Lapche, Nenam, Shebachena, Shidu Nevata, Tetala as a Yiche, Rabdu Tema, Rabdu Temata, and it then Sambata Joa, Samjo Nigitone, and Tembata, Rad Tembata, and it Kubati Chebe, Lamata, and it Trola, Lamata, or Trola. Because the Shesa Rabjeta, the Kubat Cheva, what is it? And Ranju said to Jenna, Ranjum said to Jenna, and what's a Sheva? Tibe number China, what that did Cheva, and chicken because Tibegi, Jusawi, what the Shene, because Tibe Namila, Chibata, Cheta, Takachate, Chibata Cheta, Ombushisha Dua. Opposition to a Simja Shella, Kawacha, Zuba, watch at Simja Shella, Pembertune, and Kawacha, Zuba. Because Zubache. 어느 어디든 지라 지 편도 봐서 지라 지 아니 지금 편도 지에 다 어디든 지 아니 차단계에서 편주 미트베 집에 줘봐이 랑게 되다 개와 남지 이미 조시 다가제 랑게 지 되바다 미트바데 중에는 셈마죠 왔잖아 어디까지 차단계 오게 어디든 맞지 미조시 녀모 기베 랑라 랑와 메바 대다게 스템디 중량도 닝제다 맞아 어디 녀모 기베 다 녀모 기는 수술로 너바 기원 들어줘나다 코나도라 랑와 메베 대다게 스템디 중량 어디 되게 삼로 되데 너바 기 삼로 되데 중앙에서는 들 콘도 마사지 닝제 기워서 닝제 기는 자와데 맞지 대다 녀모다 태월 배워 어디 되데 이마이서 자와데 제네 안 대다 녀모 대다 제라 아니 편도치 못했어.
So here is this being steadfast, resolute in the advice, in the kind of trainings that one has taken on, and that means that we are very stable, resolute about our intentions, and that this is kind of fueled by powerful faith and trust in the teachings themselves. Likewise, we are, our actions follow very closely on our motivations. So our thoughts and actions are pretty much as one. And that this is very important. In the context of that, we have absolute respect for and very polite towards our gurus and our Dharma friends, etc. That we have also a keen sense of embarrassment and shame with regard to our own behavior, our own standards that we set for ourselves if we don't live up to them. And so that's kind of a very powerful sense of conscience. And so also we have a healthy apprehension with regard to the ripening results of negativities on our mind streams, and that we are doing something about that. We are also calm with regard to acting on the objects of our senses. So we pacify, the sense reactions, and that we work really strongly to for the happiness of others. I'm kind of really dedicated in that way. Also, with regard to situations that we find ourselves in, we are not easily discouraged by the discord of the childish, as it says in the verse, who are acting out of attachment and aversion with one another, and that when things don't turn out according to their wishes and so on, because we don't get discouraged because we see clearly what is going on here, that they are kind of like these issues arise in their minds through the minds being afflicted, and the mental affliction is what's behind all of this, and they are kind of almost powerless in their reactions to it. And so from our point of view, we select a response as kindness and love, compassion towards them, and in no way connect with the mental affliction.
다 간제 지금 대 수고다 차단의 로디 차단의 로기 온게 아니 다 지금 다 지금 가서다 지라 당 되게 집에 집에서 가서 삼로 내서 몰롱게를 집에서 기와 집에서 왔다까지 삼로 내서 몰롱게 다 지당에 수고 여러 다 되네 이마 이사 당 말아서 삼로 내서 삼륜내세 롱베톤네 다 지에디 안 디주베 상황도 맞중하잖아 지에디 다 삼륜내세 롱아 지다도 저기요 뭐 왔다 어디에 디체도 쓰고 있고 어디에.
And so here, when it talks about the childish in this verse, it's referring to those whose minds are dominated by attachment on the one side, or aversion on the other. So attached to one thing, have aversion towards another, and there's kind of no in between. So they're kind of defined as a person who is blind to their own state of mind, but blind to the situation in their own mind state. And so these people are not in control.
다 지난 심제라 and Kuba you had should catch about Kuba down and a simjala Siguru Yobayina and a Chatan Loshon. Tanda Dinza, Tanda de Kare Kishilang Tambego, Lojon Sija Mala, Kodil Yoba, Tanda Simjan Tamjala Ishin over Lela, Jojo was somebody, Tata Chaban symbol shows. What I just what Coco the Delicium, what are the Kanjet to Kuba down, Sigur down, Delicious, and the Chatan Lord shoot on Wisra. That the day never change, do any Chatan Lord you teach. This is the same chance in the security, and the Dilla Yishing Noble Haga in Bata. And the Rangi, Chigunet Nege, Nega the Tatu with Tiki Tamjek June in Basorach. Words into by Imbaina, and Chadanga Lotte came out to watch. The Neg necessity Shimbaina.
And so here, that in terms of sentient beings, we should have no discrimination whatsoever, that all sentient beings are the object of our respect and of our love and of our compassion. As Geshe Langmitangpa says in the 8 verses of line transformation, we should hold all sentient beings as even greater than a wish-fulfilling gem, and that this is how important that we have and should have this level of respect always for all sentient beings. And because when we don't have that, that kind of habituated mind, we are proceeding to a greater or lesser extent through judgmentalism, having attachment towards some, aversion towards others. And so we have to see, as Geshe Langmitangpa is pointing to in that verse, is that sentient beings are responsible for all of our temporary and ultimate happiness. But that's why they're even greater than a wish-fulfilling gem. It's from them, from them that we can accumulate all the causes for our spiritual progress.
What do you do? Tagan Sanjay Don Lole, and if Sanjay Tamjala and Chuba. Jina come Tangela and the Chamli Chuba Puale and Simjela and Simjela Jambakumba the Penny Chickens. Did a Sungutwa.
And so saying here in one of the sutras of the Buddha too, that if we were to make offerings to all of the Buddhas in all the 10 directions, that is a wonderful thing. But even greater is an act of love towards a sentient being. That has a more benefit.
Jamba combat pay chicken is what in the Sungutu. What the day in out that the Kanja, the nigger to get the Shemba and it got Chatan a lot. That you cannot social new Yobachi. Want to Chatan Logan, Chicas, social near the Panto, and it's Yawaji Jugu, the Chatan a lot you, and the Russian Kangal Nyong with chatting, Russian Kangal Nyong study. Do it. Do you but not to get
So therefore we should view these twin minds of attachment and aversion as being utterly and exclusively harmful to us ourselves, and that we can't proceed if we are only benefiting somebody because we have an attachment to them. That is no benefit to either of us, that it's harmful to both myself and all others. And we should see it like a poison, that it clearly the fault should be outed with regard to it. And therefore we should choose never to in any way support attachment.
Chadang Lodi Chibe Jobari said, Netse Malonga, some Tangmashing Jobari, Sunguyor, some Tangmashing Jobaris. That the name was a Tangos, some Tanging Taylor, Super Cherry gets about it. What did it?
And so this going back to the verse where it talks about the childish, these people who are unaware, blind to the actual situation in their own minds. They don't know how to think. So there we have to see ourselves as being, very much different to that. We have understanding. We have a capacity to be able to make the right decisions, and therefore we should set out to do so.
Niba tumo yasa tumo ye nyambo ne zawale kana ma to mengola dada semje onjeshe tuba shindo ngamewa yide dado songalcha sa.
The next is the second of those subheadings, where it's saying the more general antidote, more common antidote. Verse number 57. In doing that which by nature is not unwholesome, both for the sake of myself and other sentient beings, I should always hold my mind fast, acting like an apparition with no sense of self.
Reta cherangi esa kana matobe, cherangi kana matobe ese kiwe ngobula chubana, ta kiwe ngobula chubana, kiwe ngamle chubana, tada simja tamja la pembe ondo cheche ta, raji simja tamja la pembe chavichi do cheshin, ane deme tobe sherab jisina ta, chwe tamja ki nelu toba, chwe tamja ki nelu ki dun, ane ta chikasore ngebe tone ta shara chi simbe kone ani juma da juba tabu ta ka je kasa da je ta ka de juma del kasa de ranshi me ban dele ani juba na so ba chatting chi ro da chatting chi juba che wa shindo ani je ngaje me ba ro ta de je pamba tubi sa so je be ngaje ta Kansam Rabin Yonguru out and my watching rangi yine, that so much I was not so young. Yanti Pemba to an teleton Yachama gave Yonguru, what that Chadama gave a toll young, dear Tileton Achigures, so much I was shower watching. Was you that Pemba could 2 years old, you can't you get your good water.
And so here is that when we are engaged in not unwholesome, in other words, a beneficial virtue, that entering into that, and we have as our focus the benefit to ourselves and all sentient beings, that here it's important to imbue our motivation with the realization of selflessness, that wisdom of selflessness, seeing all as an illusion or like an apparition. And so here to have absolutely no pride in the situation, to be very, very humble in what we're doing, and that in this way to hold the mind steady, to be in a very stable state of mind, and also to engage in that process too, constantly checking to see, is this a really pure beneficial action, because so many times that we have started out with the good intentions, that it ends up our action or our virtue is kind of polluted by the 8 worldly concerns.
So there's a Tapanja Kadu and Chikasola Tongni Koaji, you want a Tombani Koa and Simbeton. Tatolan, etc. Timada Tombani Koa Simbeton, what did the channel? What did the channel? Catch much about what did the channel?
Again, that looks like Noah's gone for
yeah.
Disappeared off the screen.
Internet gone.
Yeah, maybe.
Trixangela?
Hello, that's all.
Gonda. The Jackson.
Just this one. That's all. That in it, what the legend that I did. So the Kodu in there, and Kawachi Tuba in there, and the short young Garazola, Chicas, a chicken trigger that in the loke, young is a Dimaje, Tapchi day. Kodu in the Caso de Jambata, Shishing, Jarachene, and choose to watch. Church corner drop to watch it. Thank you, Jabota. Tamucho go to the church investor share, and Kansas and a young Marazo change the chair. The young normally do to what you don't take it. Or wish you want to take it out the latter, but Taco dinner, church chose to drop to watch. Church chose to drop to watch your age. What the Sungur, what that religion, what the legend.
So apologize for that. My connection dropped out there. So again, I was pointing out in relation to this particular verse that what's very important, actually, that whenever we, at all times, basically, to try to bring the doctrine of emptiness and our understanding of that into our virtue, into what we're doing, to imbue our motivation with that thinking is a very protective way of proceeding. And that's also to be very aware that when we're engaged in a virtue, that we're able to follow through with that virtue with the purest of motivation, constantly reminding ourselves through mindfulness and alertness to ensure that it isn't in any way infected by the 8 worldly concerns, that, you know, that in some way we might meet with some conditions that might throw us off our virtue and into something else. And so we have to say, if I'm engaging in this, I'm going to follow it through to the end. This is my virtue, and I'm going to make sure it's done as purely as possible.
The man so the Yabushuna, me, Jed, Malana, Yasu, the Kivu meetings. Oh, Koyabu Chesta, Koyamba Dusta, Koyabu Cheras, the Chick Sausage or that Mika Hako do something. That me Hakwana going to get Mukai meetings. So the Jade, choose to watch. Choose to watch. What that
this protects us also from having from any kind of reactions to our particular virtue. Like we should be very assured with regard to ourselves and very honest with regard to ourselves as to how well that particular virtue was pulled off. And that, you know, we might be in a situation where, you know, somebody has seen us doing something, and then they go, oh, well, you didn't do so well there. And you kind of have a negative reaction immediately to that, thereby revealing the fact that you are infected by the 8 worldly concerns. Or they might have the opposite and say, oh, well done, what a wonderful practitioner you are. And then you get all puffed up and kind of proud of what you've done. And again, you reveal that you're polluted by the 8 worldly concerns. So it should not matter one way or the other what anybody else's response is to what you do in terms of virtue, but that you have a very clear understanding and assessment of it from your own perspective.
What that can get you the Jongo Jusum de la and Nomu Kima Shwatch. Nomu Kima Shwatch, the Getchimba, Nomu Kima Shwatch. This I want to. Nomu want to storm us on that. That's also the chair delta. Chair the tick delta, a lot of me have go get book. I am at it. Because Shuggy Egon Nal Tata Zusarta. Tata Tewu good.
And so that what's most important then is that we proceed as mindfully as possible with the motivation, with the action, and with the dedication part of any virtue as clearly as possible, and also ensuring that at no point is there any input from mental affliction. And if we can do that, then it matters not a jot that somebody else knows or not, and that what we have done has been deposited in our Dharma account and will have its result, you know, one way or the other. And so this is all the kind of like affirmation that we should need.
토바 양다 양삼네 셈데 따보 리잡다 라도 미요 송월 차서.
And so the third of those subheadings was how to apply the antidotes. And so verse number 58 says, by thinking again and again that after a long time I have won the greatest leisure, likewise I should hold my mind as utterly unshakable as the king of mountains.
딱 이제 랑라 저기 대조고 리덴 데데 니바데 양양도 가업거니 거기 레라고 연구요 말고 그 엑스텐션 중앙 말이야 딱고 리트메 줄레 리트메 대보자 날 아니 저기 추dim사 아니 저기 가서데 추dim곰 저 추dim게 냠내제 아니 제소 파진 주고 도와제 몰라 디만베 참전 주먹 오저 초알라 때네 왔다 다네 대조고 리덴 토바지 뭐 줘봤지 아니 대조고 리덴기 딱 니보도 심봤지 좋아 지 가서도 니보도 심봤지 왔다 니보도 아니 딱 가져 지 가서도 지금 타바다 탐제 쳐봐 토발라 빠 매도 미르면 리덴 차도 땡기 되게 좀 말은 매도 미르면 리덴 차도 왔다 되게 신네 다 어디가도 신네 아니 뭐 소나 망도 사브에서 뒤링 시 련에서다 련에 아니 대외 초 토바 이 냠도 다 된제 토바 이 냠도 아니 된존예 가수 양양도 쌈네 다 로아 규거는 니거서 배고는 니 가수 때 라므리나 송이 어떻게 되게 삼로 따네 로아다 뭐 배고는 니 가수 어떻게 돼 삼로 따네 양양의 양도 삼로 따네 아니 나시아바다 된제부 두 냠배다 간저 어데리셔다 나시아바는 시가다 심지어 탐제기도 산제 고마 주비사 된제부 두 냠배 셈대다 리잡다 라도 미요와 때뭐 송아자 와서 어떤지 뭐 송고됐어
And so here it's simply pointing to, the fact that we have attained this particular state of life, called human rebirth. That this is something that we have to avoid at all costs taking for granted. That it has been hard won with tremendous effort, and it hasn't been easy. That we have had to lay down very specific causes on our own mind stream that have ripened into this particular life, this particular opportunity, causes that have been laid down through pretty good, perfect ethical conduct, through actions of generosity and other perfections, and through making specific aspirational prayers to attain such a rebirth. And that this is a rebirth of leisure and endowment. We have all of these specific human advantages leading to it being referred to as a precious human rebirth. And it has, the idea is that we have such an amazing asset at our fingertips here that we need to be able to take the essence of it. And the essence of it is really, recognize that it is the most perfect basis on which we can lay down the causes to attain liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. It's a very, very powerful potential that we must fulfill. And so here in this verse is saying, we have accumulated this previous merit, so much of it that we have accumulated, and for over a long period of time. And in the Lam Rim we talked about how difficult it is to attain such a rebirth in terms of the timing and so on, and in terms of the difficulty, the example, the rarity, and so on. And so here we have attained this supreme leisure, the leisures and the endowments. And by thinking like this, we should say we have found this powerful, this essence, this kind of like something which is so difficult to find, and that thinking like this, that it has, something that we should have in our mind that is kind of like really the basis on which I can achieve something incredibly meaningful, and to have that thought in the mind more powerful and more stable than the king of mountains.
어디로도 다 간제지 이제 가소래 지 가소래 내가 그 디기사 많이 받잖아 때도 디기 주변라 다 간제지 류된디 다 간제지 대조고 류된다 현대민자지 이바도 똑바요 말해 다 된대 임바 인사 그 남주 현대민자고 고도 남주 배주 당신 받고 고도 좋아 지 가소래 옹비 셰발을 나와잠 옹비 셰베고 유도 좋아잠 대대지를 참 마셔 봤잖아 아니 좀제 집에 띵 사본에 좀제 삼로 땅네 세마리 베토네 삼로 땅띵 사본에 삼로 땅네 녀바니 투베지 아니 디기 규카이미 동해 규카이미 아니 데데데 아니 지금 세마리 베게 아니 땅라 바도 다 데데게 띵 사본 땅라 바도 대저고 리된 소라 마냐 투고 말이 리된 셔바 지고 투고 말이 아니 데데 인 차도 오다 다 데데고 리된 짜치보데 니바디 아니 배 다가제 지게 가서다 니바데 아니 추세 마당하잖아 촐라 마당하잖아 다가제 디 닝불련 도바지 숨고 열봐 저 된전부 두냐바다 된전부 가르서는 라시 탐제가 라시 니가 된 타지 뭐 산제 고마 주베 들어왔다 어디 된다 주베 아니 된다 산을 잡는 셰베 마요체 때부 숨고레스 어디래잖아 그래 다가제 지게 된적을 리된데 좀제 야고지 심한데 디 촐라 다이라 판거도 와 좋아 가서는 지금 미지치기 체도 된다기 체도 안에 지금 가서는 답변아 총자 레갈레 칼레자 무유스 다 된대 잡고 제바이나 대적을 리된 거에 매봐 리된 샤바수가 제토에 열어 다 대적을 리된 믹스기 캐주디 어다 뭐쳐 봤잖아 디제도 다디 배주 땅 맞은 다 풍보로 와 어떤데 근데 이거 다디다 아니 치와미다 봤잖아 치와니 치와 예바 맞아 남치디 예매체 아니 치외체 치마도 가야미 배봐 와다 디게디 좀 제디게도 삼로 당도 때네 아니 가서래 안 뒤지 촐라 마당하지 아니 대저 루데 닝불련 도와 준 거로 와 닝불련 도와 준 거로 와
So what we're looking for here, of course, is not just a temporary happiness, but some way in which we can guarantee an ultimate, a permanent sense of happiness. And we have with this precious human rebirth this extraordinary intelligence to be able to move beyond just interpreting our world via the physical senses, but actually interpret through our mind sense, to employ logic and reasoning to all of that which we assimilate in our lives. And so this is so important, that this basis of reasoning, that is able to reason out what are the causes of suffering and the causes of happiness, and to be able to make an unmistaken choice with regard to the causes we want to accumulate. And this is the process of really taking the essence of a precious human rebirth. That we have, what we have here is something, we have this precious human rebirth. We have already attained something which is incredibly priceless, precious, and that therefore we should not waste this opportunity. We should not fail to take its essence. And so when we talk about it being the basis on which we can achieve something really extraordinary, really meaningful, what it means is that we can fulfill the purpose of ourselves and others by attaining that state of enlightenment, leading all sentient beings to that state of enlightenment. And that this here is, therefore, we must never waste this opportunity, and never waste a moment of this opportunity. And not to kind of like be in ourselves with a life which is dominated by the following of business, of accumulation of wealth, and so on, of work for the sake of work, and so you kind of like cannot take the essence of this great opportunity that you have. And so we have to kind of recognize that initially, and then strive to take the essence of that. The way to do that is to also contemplate on death, on the very facts of death, that death is definite, that the time of death is indefinite, that the only thing that's of help to us at the time of death is our spiritual practice. And this is going to help us to really kind of focus in on what's important, and to kind of like use the reasoning to kind of make sure that we have no time to waste, that we must get into it now and take the essence of this precious human rebirth.
어때? 다 되네 이제 아니 다 되지 졸라마다 가서 거기는 곰 잡잡대 그러. 되네 가보시라래. 얘네 다 가리 열서나 나랑 저게 룽아 유숨들라 아니 저게 다 되게냐 슈바네 신체네 아니 제가서데 다 그냥 녀몽게 고티게티 아니 좀전 삼로다네 고티게 마가예 고가예잖아. 다 그냥 당부 숙청 보잖아. 뭐 신시도 내봤잖아. 제가 좀전 삼로다네 대 숙청도 저도 아니 제가 제가서도 숙청 뭐 맞게 가서도 매번 소답지. 아니 다가는 시게 다 남주 쉬대반에 시 지금 나라도 코아바래 삼점 디기 연구를 삼점 동네 연구를 다 나서가지래. 디 연대 아니 디기 중에 디 가서도 최주배 통계를 배주다예. 동네 중에 디 최주배 통계를 배주다는 디기다 동네 니가디 최주배게 아니 개견을 못어가지고 최주배 통계를 배주당도 봐이나 뭐다 다 아니 데델라 때는 아니 미진이 못 렌투고 도 아니 다 지제 최소 좋아서 가르쳐봐도 최소 좋아 되겠지.
And so therefore we must not waste this opportunity, and that we mustn't think that therefore, if I not to waste any of this precious human rebirth, I have to sit in meditation all the time and go into retreat, etc., etc. That is not really what's being referred to here. Again, as I pointed out, that one takes into account all of our experience that arises from body, speech, and mind, and that here we are kind of mindful and alert to what is occurring within those three spheres of experience, and to be able to always close the door to mental affliction, keep it closed. This is the key thing. And this is really, and to do this via the reasoning process that we put into it. And that this is very important. As I said before, if the mental afflictions are at a point where very powerful, then we remain like a piece of wood, as is described. And then otherwise, we have reasoning antidotes to be able to apply to eradicate those mental afflictions at that time. And, we have to see that we are in cyclic existence, and that because of that reality, we're going to experience happiness sometimes, we're going to experience suffering more times. And so we have to learn how to take all experience onto the path of Dharma that we are committed to. And so here we have to be able to learn to see both happiness and suffering as a condition to kind of like prompt me into spiritual practice. And this is very important. This is called engaging in spiritual practice. This is the taking of the essence of our precious human rebirth.
어다들 제가 이나 아니 말아서 거기에 최주에 고급 유해된겠지. 소소 릉아 예수인데 아니 녀몽게 이봐 뭐 녀몽게 어떤 뭐 줘봤지네. 대축초도 초도다 매버서 아니 상해 가르쳐서 최주에 통계를 배주당의 치바이나 아니 잡아다 닝제고 아니 저게 돈이 또 배셔라기 게답 텔레 치바이나 다 가자 미지 다 가자 최대 대받지네. 최대 대받지네. 아니 라를 뒤주야 그 망보여 가서 너무想와도 마당데 뒤주 빼 망보여. 뒤주 망보여도 아니 다 가자 소소 미지 가자 대받 쪽에 아니 최소 좋도와 좋고 도와. 시험어서 가서다 작당게 로그 제가 되게 그 뒤주 쉬고 세잖아. 아니 뒤주 매버 소식도. 아니 최주배 뒤주 매라. 다 최주배 뒤주 샤바 소모가자 랑게 쇼가 랑바네 만약에 파도 되게가 아니 가서도 최근 냠내도 잔 침바이나 강에 가요 말이.
So therefore, whenever we should see everything as an opportunity to engage in spiritual practice, that if we are protecting our body, speech, and mind from a mental affliction, we can, by recognizing how that mental afflictions, those particular mental afflictions arise, what are the cooperating conditions that support them, we can recognize that, and then we can start to reduce their influence. That then we have time to start to meditate on and contemplate love and compassion and the theory of emptiness. And so this is then starting to turn our life more and more towards the Dharma, and that we are living our life in harmony with the Dharma principles. This is so important that you'll notice that without, the mental afflictions dominating our lives so much, you realize you have so much more time on your hands. And so very, very important that you use that time well, from the moment you get up in the morning till you go to bed at night. That if you are able to live a life in harmony with Dharma, you will find that you have no problems.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And
let's leave it there for today.
Tungi Nagala Lama to be on Compiaro, what the Chantaka comes on to Ari to Kawakiwa in there, Chikasurata, Tomato Judo, Chavatuja, Tama Chavatuje to Mele Madevari. That the day you buy in some, and it the negative and Jajig to Jig to make you Kitty, and it Takaja Tomato Ju to make that, you sort of Chambudua, what the day you buy in some, the day you comes on Coari to Kawakiwa in the Tamunachane, then to Tiki it up, so in a meeting. And so to make a samutane and calling a batch of Yejochi Samuta. Tatilla Tawach Machan, sound the Chigumu, some such an Yejochi Samuta. And it the nigga Yenjungi gave a loti, a rangichuola, Pamatamacha, so some such. That China choke condition by in there, and the Chikato the you didn't do us 2,000 yomans, you didn't do my never talk at for 10. You can't go to 10 go to us. There, that for you didn't do much of a tartan years. What you didn't do, do something about it. But Tachen, what it is a Sentachen, what it is some time, what it is. But do not do a meeting to Combashe on the day, the name you have a lot of the Takata, the permit and because you make him with Yakon sometime. The day you buy in that, that's just Tamjak to the Sunday, that to tell you didn't matter in that, that's just Sankia, you go there. And check Kwan taught what they do, Casana, what you didn't matter in the Yungata, the Tama Tamiki, what we go to change the young ways. That the day was a simple time of Sunday Coma to Machana Tigumu. You need to do what you in some summer stuff. The nigga to Mate, the waiting when Yakon for some chat. Then up on the seven number of target you open the country, go to the Murusa, so the Sudachable Tamika, you go to show similar attention Sunday Coma Mato, but the chairs some Chicago.
And so then we begin the process of dissolution. And first of all, it begins by, again, reminding ourselves of the figure we are visualizing, the space in front, Guru Indra Buddha.
Not internet sample. Hello?
I think Noel's frozen again.
Yeah.
His internet stopped.
Yeah. I think usually similar thing, okay? Yeah, this everyone know. Yeah. Think that what's called renunciation thing, and then that renunciation thing, that minds become here what's called lotus, and then inner, outer, everything is object or not existing. Yeah, not existing, and that way, that emptiness thing that way, and that one, that might become scientific thing on the what's called lotus, and the benefit also enlightenment quickly benefit also the enlightenment thing, and that mind become more distinct on the sun. Okay, and then invite. Hello, Noel.
Last again.
What I can I get to talk about the Indian
Yes, sir. We're song again. Big song.
Oh, God, what did I say? What I can get Rangi Chivola, what are the Pema de Nimatawi and some Tantaslo, what did I say? And
yes, so we've been discussing. Go again.
Yeah.
So we've been discussing the setting up the lotus, as we said there, from that sense of being stuck in cyclic existence and really desiring a definite emergence from cyclic existence. We need to develop a strong sense of renunciation, and through that thinking and that mind, then arises the lotus mandala disc at our own crown. And then through reflecting on the fact that even any external or internal phenomena lacking any objective existence, even at the atomic level, that we're kind of very conscious of this and aware of this, and from that feeling of really seeing, the lack of existence of the object of negation, that voidness producing the sun disk mandala. And then through that process, the fact that phenomena can't have any objective existence, meaning that they arise independence, allowing for the process of cause and effect. And that means that I can create the causes to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And that produces the moon disk mandala. And so we have this appropriate prepared seat on our crown. And then we utter the invocation verse. So, glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. The first recitation, the figure moves from the space in front. At the end of the second, they have arrived at our pre-prepared seat. And at the end of the third, they remain steadfast there, giving us the assurance that they will be there protecting us until we attain the state of enlightenment. And so we can rejoice at that point.
What did the combat? What did the touch of will be? What did the combat? And that, I need to go to the then that because Yala to meditate between the chance I want to choose. So when Jesus will come to Gawada chooses to come to the Chadu watch and the Sashi Bishop choosing with the religion, the Yamat suggestion to win up that church, Idangura Dana Medala and the entire miss. What I Yala to meditate between what is a society charge. And then, yeah, the Samutan Casote, Yanjo, some Yanjo, some stuff. And then they lot running the Pemata Gichu, some such. The Tagani China Chukan, you don't do some your mother's Kacha of the summer, and the Pemata Maja was Juso. Then the same time the New York San Command to Toba Jing, so the logic, and then they could do Bati and David when Yakos Pandits of Lama was dining up in the Kusu to Jukuja, so there is so that Tamika so never of the show. So attention, Sanjay Kumamato, but the chance so that Yakushi, which was on the Kako.
And so then we have the assurance there. And this point, then we make the offering of the 7 limbs of practice along with the mandala offering. Then we start to focus on our own heart center, where we prepare for the invocation and inviting of the Guru Buddha there. And again, reflecting on the thoughts of renunciation, the fact that once we're in cyclic existence, we're prone to suffering, be it suffering of change, or that which induces both of those sufferings, the kind of like how do you say, the over kind of the third type of suffering, pervasive suffering, that we can't have any hope of any release from cyclic existence. And so we have that strong renunciation says I must attain definite emergence from cyclic existence. And from that thought arises the lotus mandala seed. From the fact of, again, contemplating that all external and internal phenomena lack any objective existence, can't even arise in terms of at the atomical level, and are merely imputed by thought. And that we pause at that the negation of the object of negation, and that particular thought produces the sun disk mandala seed. And that the fact of that reality, that dependent reality, allowing for us to create the causes to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, brings forth the Bodhicitta notion and the moon disk mandala seed. And again, we utter the invocation verse thrice: O glorious and precious root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seed placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. And so at the end of the first, the figure moves down through crown chakra into the central channel. At the end of the second recitation, has arrived at our pre-prepared seat. And at the end of the third, we have the assurance that they remain steadfast there until we ourselves attain enlightenment. And so we can really rejoice in that.
아니 되나지 랑이니 배만 답지 마이는 카소는 남주닝 내단체 디가도 도지 커브 생각 제가 같이 디 타고도 아니 또 배상아 다이도 문문 다이도 문문 마음을 써 되네 지도 잠바양서 오마라 바자나 디디디디디디스데네 된데고 송 오마 예다마 해도는 마 샤만나 이소 아스트리지 송 코티가치 아니 디 위소 닝 위소 라마샤자 생게 슈바티 아니 구송토를 위해서 빠도 매버라랑 치고네 간디가 발로 위해서 트네 토마메만 디바저 켜봐도 딱까지 지금 가소라 딱까지 지금 가소래 미게 주보고 추점다 개와 그러다 라진 칸나마도 와다 집에 칸나마도 베다 네바 근데 쌓이는 최대한 토마메만 네바 근데 쌓아 다간 저 소다고 돈 받다가 장주스면 라바다가 상하다 제다가 파다 말라 먹고 봐 제물 로벌로 먹고 좋아서 봐서 꾸져서는 내비제 내죠 디베미 저서 다 기드 다 기도 현재 제수 일어나서 돈나 토리다 답이 계속 저 코와도 녀석은 녀동 소치자부터 짱지 따버 중소 선서 오되는 공부시 다간 이제 루그 나서 생겨 동에 아니 조시 코만요 자롱 틸레 견 가려 마 단 교타자 마산에 반 레스로가 야구 중수 선수 사도도다 지금 뉴도 산제 고마타베 교연 체주데 타메가 나죠 타메 나죠 교연 탐제전 가나 탄제 다바람 잡아시 차도가 야구 중수 서 고마시
And then as a result of that, so we rejoice, and again from there the light rays begin to emanate from the figure in between. Then the petals of the lotus start folding over, and they're sealed at their tips by a white five-pronged semi-vajra. And then that package is surrounded by 3 mantras, with the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination again in a clockwise direction. Once this is completed, then from within the lotus petals, the figure of Guru Muninjaya Shakyamuni Buddha starts to emanate powerful light rays from body, speech, and mind, permeating the petals and indeed permeating every atom of our bodies, from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet, purifying all negativities and obscurations that we have accumulated since the beginning of this time, including all the 10 non-virtues of attachment, aversion, all the 10 non-virtues of body, speech, and mind, of all the naturally occurring negativities, as well as anything that has been prescribed by the Buddha, and that all vows, for example, any infractions of the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, or the Tantric vows, any disrespect we have shown to our parents, right up to our gurus, and all of the negativities that we have engaged in ourselves, that we have enticed others into doing, that we have rejoiced in the doing of, all issues that we have with our physical health, with disease, with illness, and so on, all mental problems that we have that are a result of negativities, imbalances in the elements within the body, in the channels, the winds, and the drops, and they are all rectified. Everything else is completely purified. In particular, the main obstacle to our being able to quickly attain a state of enlightenment being ordinary view of we are able to now see everything with a pure view.
원래는 소소 신도 저 롱디 녀레 소소 다 소소 신도 저 롱디 녀레게 라마샤자서 굿 렌지 지근저 소소 리더 라마샤자서 굿을 줘서 소소 신도 저 셈데 녀레제 라마샤자서 굿 렌지 지근 소소 셈데 라마샤자서 굿을 줘서 랑게 룽아 예송다 라마샤자서 굿송 동고 예메 줘서 섬서자 디 동바 동배 대와 대동 예수미 시켜서 섬서 아니 랑냐사게 네대 네고 견 탐제자 라마샤자서 다베 신도 줘서 섬서자.
And then through the combination of my own most subtle winds acting as the substantial cause with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of the Buddha. And then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative condition, my own mind is transformed into the enlightened mind of the Buddha. And so then I see my own body, speech, and mind as being inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. This brings forth a sense of bliss in the mind. This combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness. Likewise, the place that I am in now is cleansed of all fault and is transformed into the celestial abode of an enlightened being.
Lama Shaja Sambe Kusundong Go Yeme Juati, Le Juati, and Nala Rashi make a summertime, Dile Tugale, and Lama Shaja sing a part of our journey. And it comes to the same Tamjela, and the Chasawa, Lama Shaga sing a Chasawa, but Tim so something, Dela Tene, Deda Tanja, and the Caso Takanja, Lama Shaja Kusundong Go Yeme Jusu, something. Deda Tanja, and New Gentleman, Lama Shaja sing a Davish to Jusu, so what that call come, same Tamja turn to Green, so that you might didn't do some call.
Then seeing myself as a fully enlightened being, also not existing in any way, in the same way as I appear, I send out countless rays of light from my own heart center, equal in number to all the realms, all the beings in all the realms of existence. And upon dissolving into them, and they arise spontaneously as fully enlightened beings, the places that they are in are purified of any fault, and they transformed into the celestial abodes of enlightened beings. And that then I can rejoice at this point that I have attained the purpose of myself and others. I've led all the sentient beings to that state of existence, the actual leading of all the sentient beings to that state of enlightenment, the virtue that has caused that to occur, and myself as the agent of that virtue, all three lacking any objective existence and are merely imputed by thought. From that sense of voidness arises a sense of bliss, which is, and then I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
Oh yeah, Sunday Tanja Sanya Kumakuma, did you give out the two Garzos? You tell my Toba Pata, data to just watch on. What I did, what did you Kumbashe, and then what did you that maybe you just are Munakor did a level of Kayo. There's some town and Shinja, Munakora did the new one to do again, 10 years, get the Cherry Kuru, shows watch it.
And so, of course, I'm operating at the level of imagination and aspiration here. There's no way I can make this for real happen just like that. But at the same time, I definitely make a very powerful, sincere dedication that this actually, just like I have visualized today, may it occur as quickly as possible. May I be granted all the conducive conditions to allow it to happen as quickly as possible. And may I avoid any inconducive conditions to that.
What is
You are, O beloved Shavara, great treasure of compassion, not ended to existence, and Manjusri, master of flawless wisdom. As well as Vajrapani, destroyer of all the demons without deception. Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of snow. Those on Jakpa at your feet, I pay respect.